What if baseball's darkest summer, the one that silenced stadiums, erased a World Series, and broke America's pastime, never came to pass? To understand this alternate universe, we have to step back to that fateful year, 1994. Major League Baseball was on the verge of something historic. The Montreal Expos were the best team in the league, led by a young electric core: Larry Walker, Marquis Grissom, Moises Alou, and a 22-year-old pitching phenom named Pedro Martinez. They were baseball's secret revolution, a small market team defying the odds and rising above giants like the Yankees and Braves. Across the league, Tony Gwynn was flirting with .400, something unseen since Ted Williams. Ken Griffey Jr. was the face of the sport, hammering home runs with effortless grace. And power hitters like Frank Thomas and Jeff Bagwell were redefining what MVP seasons looked like. Baseball, for the first time in decades, felt youthful again. Alive, fast, full of swagger. But then, silence. In our world, August 12, 1994, the players walked out. A labor war that canceled the rest of the season, and for the first time in 90 years, the World Series. Fans turned away. Stadiums emptied. Trust was shattered. But in this replay legend's timeline, the strike is averted. Cooler heads prevail. Commissioner Bud Selig and union leader Donald Fair find middle ground: a revenue-sharing compromise, an agreement on the salary cap, and a promise to preserve the season. The players stay. The games go on. And what unfolds from there rewrites not just that season, but the very soul of the game. August 1994. The Expos keep rolling. Their chemistry, their swagger, their fearless youth turns into one of the greatest runs in modern baseball history. Pedro becomes a legend before the world even expects it, a 20-game winner with an ERA under 2.00. Larry Walker plays like a man possessed, anchoring a team that feels destined for immortality. When October arrives, the world finally witnesses something that never happened in reality: a Montreal World Series. The Expos face the New York Yankees, the beginning of a rivalry that might have changed baseball's geography forever. Imagine Olympic Stadium, the crowd shaking, bilingual chants echoing through the dome, the entire nation of Canada holding its breath. The Expos, against the odds, defeat the Yankees in 7 games. Montreal celebrates into the night, Canada's second World Series champion in 3 years. In this world, there is no heartbreak, no relocation, no what could have been. The Expos become the pride of a nation. The fan base explodes. By 1996, a new downtown ballpark breaks ground in Montreal, and baseball's northern future is secured. Meanwhile, Tony Gwynn, healthy, focused, relentless, does what history denied him. He hits .401, the first .400 hitter in half a century. His season becomes baseball's Mona Lisa, a perfect blend of skill, discipline, and artistry. He's celebrated coast to coast, immortalized before his career even ends. Kids across America start mimicking his stance, dreaming not of hitting 50 homers, but of spraying line drives across the field like the master of contact himself. The 1994 season becomes a living museum. Records fall, legends rise. Griffey Jr. finishes the year with 56 home runs. Bagwell wins MVP. Baseball's numbers explode, not because of steroids, but because the best talent in a generation finally gets its stage uninterrupted. And here's where the butterfly effect truly begins. Because the strike never happened, the game doesn't lose its fans. Attendance stays high. The love for baseball doesn't fade in favor of the NFL and NBA. When 1998 arrives, the home run race between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa still happens. But it's different. It isn't a desperate act of revival. It's a natural continuation of an already thriving sport. The joy feels pure. The suspicion never takes root. Without the bitterness of '94, fans don't view power with cynicism. Baseball never earns the tainted era label. The steroid scandal still exists, but its shadow isn't as long, its wounds not as deep. Instead of becoming a story of lost innocence, baseball enters the 2000s as a sport that evolved. not one that was resurrected. Now let's talk about the owners, the cities, the ripple effects that last decades. The Montreal Expos, now a dynasty in the making, become a financial powerhouse. They attract new sponsors, better TV deals, and a passionate bilingual fan base that rivals Toronto's. Vlad Guerrero joins the big league roster in 1996 and becomes a national icon. By the early 2000s, the Expos are a perennial playoff team. The franchise never relocates to Washington. That means the Nationals never exist. No Bryce Harper debut in DC, no 2019 World Series run there. The entire East Coast baseball landscape shifts. The Yankees and Red Sox still dominate headlines, but the Expos are right there with them, the Northern Kings. And with Montreal's success, Major League Baseball begins to think differently about expansion. Instead of abandoning Canada, it doubles down. New markets emerge in Vancouver or even Mexico City by the early 2000s. Baseball becomes more international, more diverse, earlier than it did in our world. Back in the United States, the absence of the strike also reshapes player movement. There's less bitterness in negotiations. Free agency evolves more organically. Players like Barry Bonds and Greg Maddux Don T become symbols of financial tension, but of performance excellence. The MLB Players Association remains strong but not hostile, and the league's economics stabilize earlier. The small market teams, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, survived the 90s without collapse. Competitive balance feels real. By 1997, you have legitimate parity, more underdog playoff runs, more emotional fan bases, more hope in every city. And for fans, the most important part of all, the connection never breaks. There's no empty stadiums in 1995, no jokes about millionaires arguing with billionaires. Baseball keeps its sacred rhythm, spring to fall, year after year, without interruption. Kids who would have turned to football or basketball stay loyal to the diamond. By the 2000s, MLB's cultural presence remains neck and neck with the NFL. The All-Star Game still matters. October baseball still feels like the center of the sports universe. And the fans, the ones who never had their hearts broken in 1994, grow up with baseball as more than nostalgia. It's their living heartbeat. But let's rewind a bit to that 1994 postseason that never was. The World Series that did happen in this timeline becomes a legend. Expos versus Yankees. The young against the old. The upstarts versus the empire. Montreal wins, and the league shifts forever. Pedro Martinez becomes a global superstar overnight, eventually signing a record extension to stay in Canada. The Expos' front office, emboldened by success, leads the analytics movement before Moneyball even arrives. They innovate, experiment, and win. The curse of small markets dies in 1994. And with that, baseball's soul, its belief that any city can dream, stays intact. The narrative of baseball through the 90s in this world is completely different. Instead of being defined by loss, lockouts, and scandal, it's defined by rebirth, precision, and possibility. Cal Ripken Jr.'s Ironman streak still captures hearts in 1995, but it becomes a celebration, not a symbol of loyalty after betrayal. Griffey Jr. becomes the face of baseball's golden age, a smiling, untainted hero of the 1990s. Barry Bonds still dominates statistically, but without the bitterness of the strike era, fans embrace his greatness instead of questioning it. The Hall of Fame debates of the 2000s are less toxic, less polarized. Baseball historians talk about eras of excellence, not eras of scandal. And maybe the biggest twist of all, the emotional one, is how the game feels. In this timeline, there is no national pastime that lost its innocence. There's just baseball, thriving, evolving, beloved. Kids in Montreal grow up with heroes. Fans in America never lose trust. The bond between player and fan, city and team, remains sacred. Imagine walking through a ballpark in 2025 in this world. The statues outside aren't reminders of what could have been. They are monuments to what never broke. Tony Gwynn's 400, Pedro's first ring, Griffey's smile. Baseball, unshattered. Of course, every what if comes with shadows. Without the strike, Maybe the owners never reform salary structures as deeply. Maybe competitive balance eventually cracks under different pressures. Maybe without the shock of 1994, the league grows complacent in other ways. But even then, even with all those maybes, one truth remains. The spirit of the game would be endured unbroken. The fans would have stayed. The cities would have believed. The magic would have never paused. So picture it one last time. Montreal, October 1994. The crowd counting down the final outs of Game 7. The sound of a ball cracking off Moises Alou's bat. The final out, a routine grounder to short. Pedro leaps. The glove flies skyward, and Olympic Stadium explodes. Fireworks rain down. The curse is gone. The dream lives. Baseball, pure, proud, undiminished, survives the decade intact. The 1994 strike never comes. The game never shatters. The legend of baseball never dies. Because in this universe, the one we just built, America's pastime truly stays timeless.